If you're watching this video, it's probably because you've thought about owning a business at some point. Maybe it's been sitting in the back of your mind for years. You picture what it might feel like to work for yourself, to have more freedom, more control, maybe over your time or environment, build something that's yours. And then life takes over. You're busy, you feel overwhelmed, you procrastinate. So the idea fades into the background and you tell yourself, someday. You start thinking, I'll be ready 3 to 5 years from now. Which conveniently is just far enough away to feel like you aren't quitting on your daydream without actually having to change any of your actions today. So why do we do that? Why do we procrastinate on something that we believe we really want? Now, a lot of people assume it's fear of failure, fear of losing what we have. And sure, maybe that's part of it. But that's actually not what I see from aspiring business owners. What I see is that they have sharp intuitions, and their intuitions know that something is missing. So to visualize this, I want you to picture a canyon. On one side is the life you have now, and on the other side is the life you want. The life with more flexibility, more fulfillment, more freedom. And to get to the other side, you get across this giant chasm of uncertainty, fear, and doubt. And to do that, you need a bridge. Now, I've got a visual framework that shows this bridge being made up of 3 planks, and those are purpose, time, and clarity. If any of those planks are missing, you're likely to fail. It's going to be just another New Year's resolution, starts with energy and goes nowhere. So I want you to consider that hesitation you're feeling, the voice in the back of your head saying, not yet, you're not quite ready, do it a little bit later. It might not be laziness. After all, you've done things in your life before that are hard. You've tackled new challenges, even when you didn't know what you were doing when you started. So maybe you're not procrastinating because you're weak. Maybe it's your intuition saying the bridge isn't ready. So let's talk about what it means to address each of the planks in creating this bridge. The first is the purpose gap. This is when you aren't clear enough or connected deeply enough to why it matters to push through the hard parts. Without that connection, you're not going to have real commitment. Without commitment, the big challenges just don't get solved. Your purpose doesn't need to be noble, doesn't need to be world-changing, just needs to be strong enough and personal enough to you that when things get uncomfortable, you still want to keep going. That's the difference between dabbling and actually doing the work. The second is the time gap. This is when you haven't carved out the space to actually work on your dream. And without that, you're not going to have consistency. You won't be able to sustain the momentum, the inertia, the demands of your current life. They're just going to pull you back to the status quo, the life you're trying to break free from. It's like expecting to get fit by thinking about the gym. Business ownership works the same way. If you don't set aside time, if you don't put in the reps, nothing's going to change. And the third is the clarity gap. This is when you don't know what you really want, where to start, maybe what to do next. Without that, you can't build conviction. The conviction that comes from seeing how what you want lines up with this path you can pursue. A clarity gap is what keeps people spinning in place. They may want change, but they don't have a structure for exploring it. Maybe for you, you haven't narrowed down what types of businesses fit you, what energizes you, or even how to test your ideas in a low-risk way. So every option feels overwhelming. Every next step feels uncertain. And because nothing feels like the right move, it becomes easy to do nothing. Purpose creates commitment. Time creates capacity. Clarity creates conviction. When those 3 things are in place, you have a bridge that you can get to the other side, a bridge to the life you want, and the conviction to believe that it might actually be possible. Now, if you've been stuck thinking about business ownership but not moving toward it, you're probably not broken. You're probably just missing a plank of that bridge. So before you beat yourself up for procrastinating, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, do I have a why that's big enough to commit to investing consistent time every single week to figure out my dream? Now, my rule of thumb is 3 to 5 hours a week. And if that isn't an investment you're willing to make, then you may not have a compelling enough reason to do something as challenging as buying or starting a business, at least not yet. And if your answer is, I don't have 3 to 5 hours a week, I'd ask you, if you had a loved one in the hospital in critical condition for the next 2 months, could you carve out 3 to 5 hours a week to be with them? My guess is that's an easy yes for most of us. It's usually not a question of if you have that kind of time, but rather, is it important enough for you to make the sacrifices necessary to create it? The second one, have I made space in my calendar so I can consistently invest that time? You can have all the intention and purpose in the world and get nowhere if you don't create the space to do the work. That means consistently putting time into figuring out your dream. Dreams only become reality when someone decides that their dream is at least going to be their part-time job. And the third and final question, do I have an initial plan for how I'll start to spend that time, start figuring out my path to business ownership? Creating the space doesn't ensure success. You got to have some idea of where to start, of how you're going to begin your exploration. It could be as simple as some online research, books, but your education has to begin somewhere with some plan of how you're going to spend your time. Now, it doesn't have to be a fully built out plan. Just clarity on where you're going to start, how you're going to fill that plan in over time. If you've been stuck, my guess is one of these three gaps is present. And that raises the question, what do I do if that's the case? So over the next few videos, we're going to walk through each of these purpose, time, clarity gaps and explore some more tactical ways of thinking about how you can lay those planks and start moving toward the life you want. And next week, we'll start with that first plank, purpose, because it is the first and most impactful domino for creating this bridge. And we'll tackle the question, how do I make sure my why is big enough to follow through? In that video, I'm going to walk you through my AMP framework, which helps you identify where your commitment can come from and whether it's actually strong enough to make the effort worthwhile. So I will see you next week. And please, if you got value from this, as usual, give it a like, send it to someone you think might find it similarly helpful. And I wish you the best of luck as you chase your dream. Cheers.